Have you ever heard the phrase, artists are brilliant, but often restless? Or perhaps you know someone whose work is exquisitely detailed, almost flawless, but behind the scenes, they seem exhausted, trapped in their own mind? Today, we're going to explore a complex relationship between OCD and creativity. Do they support each other? Or do they wear each other down? This topic isn't just about art. It's about how a brain that fixates on details can be a source of genius and suffering at the same time. We'll dive into the light and the dark sides of obsession, understanding how a constantly churning mind can produce brilliant work and how it can also trap someone in a draining loop. What is OCD and what is creativity? Before we dive into their connection, let's clarify what we mean. Obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, is more than just perfectionism. It's a mental health condition marked by intrusive, distressing thoughts, obsessions, and repetitive behaviors or mental rituals, compulsions, aimed at easing the anxiety those thoughts cause. Imagine feeling compelled to check your stove 5 times before going to bed or arranging objects perfectly symmetrical to feel at peace in your mind. These aren't quirky habits, they're uncontrollable urges that often disrupt daily life. Creativity, on the other hand, is the ability to see things differently, to produce something original, art, ideas, solutions, by linking seemingly unrelated concepts. Creativity thrives on experimentation, failure, and freedom. It grows best in a loose, flexible environment, not one under constant pressure. At first glance, OCD and creativity seem at odds. One demands strict control, the other craves freedom. But reality is rarely that simple. OCD as a catalyst for creativity. Some people with OCD produce astonishingly detailed, complex work. This has led to the notion of OCD as a hidden blessing. Take figures like Nikola Tesla, whose work habits and rituals suggest OCD, or Charles Darwin, who meticulously recorded every observation. Their obsessive attention to detail helped produce groundbreaking achievements. In creative endeavors, an extreme focus on nuance can yield results of remarkable precision and depth. Someone with obsessive tendencies might refine a single portion of their work for days until it feels just right. The outcome? Often breathtaking. But at what cost? Picture a writer who refuses to move to the next chapter until every sentence in the previous one is perfect, or an animator who loops the same frame endlessly because of a perceived microsecond imperfection. The final product may dazzle, but behind it lies hours of anxiety, frustration, even tears. And yet, for many, that very drive is what makes their work stand out. There's a commitment to excellence that runs so deep, it pushes boundaries, sometimes even their own. When obsession becomes an obstacle, unfortunately, OCD isn't only about striving for perfection. It's rooted in irrational fear and uncontrollable urges. Frequently, someone with OCD will feel their work is never enough, even when it's objectively excellent. A designer might redo the same layout dozens of times, convinced there's something wrong, yet unable to articulate what it is. This isn't artistic refinement, it's mental torture. In many cases, OCD halts creativity entirely because the fear of imperfection is too paralyzing. People would rather produce nothing than face the anxiety of getting it wrong. OCD can erode confidence, leaving creative individuals questioning their worth and silencing their inner voice. Instead of embracing the creative process, they become prisoners to a never-ending cycle of self-doubt. There's also a social impact. Missed deadlines, unfinished projects, or constant revisions can frustrate collaborators and isolate the person struggling. What began as a personal creative journey can become a lonely, anxious loop. The illusion of productivity to outsiders. Someone with OCD often appears hyperproductive. However, this productivity can be deceptive. Spending hours reorganizing notes or tweaking a minute detail doesn't always equate to meaningful progress. It can simply be the result of repetitive anxiety-driven behaviors. This illusion is exhausting. Instead of feeling proud of accomplishments, a person with OCD may feel ashamed or frustrated, convinced they're still not doing enough despite their relentless efforts. This can spiral. The more they try to make up for perceived inadequacies, the deeper they get stuck in compulsive routines that yield little real advancement. It's not uncommon for artists or creatives with OCD to describe a constant battle between momentum and paralysis. One moment, they're overflowing with ideas. The next, they're frozen by the fear that those ideas aren't good enough. The gray zone between high creativity and OCD research suggests that high creativity often involves obsessive traits. Many artists and scientists display repetitive thought patterns and a strong fixation on ideas. The crucial difference lies in whether those traits enhance life or restrict it. When obsession enriches your projects without overwhelming you, it can be an asset. But when it narrows your world and heightens distress, it's a red flag. It helps to distinguish healthy deep focus from mentally looping. One fuels innovation, the other drains energy. There's a spectrum, and many creatives find themselves walking that fine line daily, sometimes thriving, sometimes drowning. Scientific perspectives and psychological insights. Several studies have explored the link between obsessive tendencies and creative output. Kyaga et al., 2011, found individuals on the obsessive spectrum are more often represented in artistic professions. However, other research emphasizes the difference between controlled obsessive traits and full-blown clinical OCD. Mild obsessive traits can boost creativity, whereas untreated OCD can be debilitating. Researchers also note that high cognitive disinhibition, the ability to allow a wide range of thoughts to enter awareness, aligns with creativity. Yet, if paired with intense anxiety, it can backfire, trapping the mind in repetitive loops. Psychologist Dr. Gail Saltz argues that while some OCD-related behaviors might help with attention to detail, the associated anxiety usually hinders creative output long-term. The key is treatment, not suppression of creativity, but managing the parts that derail it. Real-life stories behind great work. Consider a contemporary illustrator with OCD who redrew a single scene 30 times. Not out of artistic dissatisfaction, but because their mind insisted, it's wrong. Do it again. They shared, I love drawing, but when OCD takes over, it stops being fun and becomes torture. These stories remind us that spectacular art often masks unseen struggles. We praise the final product while overlooking the mental battles that shaped it. Similarly, a musician confessed that recording an album took years, not because of lack of inspiration, but because they couldn't stop tweaking the mix. They feared if it wasn't perfect, no one would take them seriously. These narratives humanize OCD. They show the beauty and the burden intertwined in the process. Creating a safe space for creativity. People with OCD can thrive creatively if given the right conditions. They need environments that respect breaks, rest, and boundaries. Therapeutic approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, with exposure and response prevention, ERP, help manage compulsions, allowing creativity to flow without paralyzing fear. An empathetic, understanding creative community can offer support and validation. Sharing experiences, learning coping strategies, and celebrating small victories fosters resilience. Setting realistic goals, identifying anxiety triggers, and recognizing early warning signs of OCD can keep the creative process healthy and sustainable. It also helps to build a creative rhythm that values progress over perfection. Journaling, mindful art practices, and even allowing imperfect drafts to exist can be revolutionary for someone battling OCD. Finding balance rather than framing OCD as solely a blessing or a burden, perhaps the key is acceptance, acknowledging that both can exist side by side. With proper support, individuals can learn to discern when obsession is constructive and when it's destructive. Building routines that include self-care, embracing imperfection, and valuing progress over perfection are essential steps. Artists, designers, writers, and creatives alike must be reminded. You are more than your output, and no piece of work is worth sacrificing your peace of mind. Remember, Creativity is as much about the journey as it is about the destination. A healthy process will always outshine a flawless product created at the expense of well-being. The relationship between OCD and creativity is intricate, layered, and deeply personal. For some, the drive for perfection fuels extraordinary achievements. For others, it becomes a source of profound anguish. What matters most is knowing you're not alone and that you don't have to sacrifice yourself for your art. With awareness, compassion, and the right tools, creativity can flourish without consuming the creator. Let's celebrate the art, but also protect the artist. Disclaimer: this script is intended for educational and reflective purposes, not as a substitute for professional diagnosis or treatment. If you or someone you know shows signs of OCD or experiences psychological distress, reach out to a qualified psychologist or psychiatrist. Proper care and support can pave the way for a more balanced and fulfilling creative life.